Welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com.
And I'm James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com, a textbook authoritarian playbook meant to stifle any criticism of what's going on in Israel. We have got that story, plus rearming Europe, but first, the real wars. Trade wars begin at exactly 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time Tuesday morning. The long-awaited 25% U.S. tariffs on Canada and Mexico, as well as a bonus 10% levy on China, went live. The 25% tariffs taking effect apply to all imports from Canada and Mexico, except for that sweet, sweet Canadian energy, which will be tariffed at only 10%. Canadian and Mexican tariffs were supposed to be the low odds given their potential for the blowback on U.S. growth. According to, of course, the good friends at J.P. Morgan, the implementation should therefore raise odds that the plethora of other tariffs that are currently in the works, the 25% EU tariffs, sectoral tariffs on copper, lumber, etc., as well as the broader suite of reciprocal tariffs, will be enacted and are more than just negotiating tactics. Swift retaliation followed from Canada and China. Canada imposed 25% tariffs of its own on $155 billion worth of U.S. exports, including orange juice and bourbon. I forget what drink that is if you mix those together. Immediate tariffs on $30 billion of goods and the remaining $125 billion in 21 days. Meanwhile, China raised tariffs by 10% on soybeans, pork, beef, fruits, all starting March 10th, which we still have 5 days to go on that as I talk to you right now. 15% tariffs on chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton, in line with press reports of agricultural goods being Chinese tariff targets. 10 American companies involved in defense work have also been put on the entity list. Mexico hadn't made a formal retaliation announcement at the time of the writing, but around February 1st on the deadline, President Sheinbaum said they would impose tariff and non-tariff measures in defense of Mexico's interest, with sources suggesting 5 to 20% tariffs on pork, cheese, produce, steel, and aluminium. That is the second episode in a row I get to say aluminium. The Blomberg chart, nice job there, Zero Hedge. The Blomberg chart, Blomberg News, Michael Blomberg, of Mex-U.S. trade items where Mexico is a net exporter to the U.S. and could target all kinds of goods for tariffs: pulp of wood, inorganic materials, that's on the low end, then cereals, plastics, minerals, fuels, and oils on the top side of the list. Futures tumble as Trump tariffs kick in, but other news around the economic grand chessboard: U.S. futures, the peso, and the loonie, the Canadian loonie, spike after hours after Trump team hint at tariff compromise. And not exactly related, I did think I see James, after the big speech, he gave U.S. automakers some kind of little extra leeway pass, and I'm not sure if it's time-based or if it's a decrease in the amount. Again, developing story, usually as we tell you here, 24 hours, we might be behind if things are happening quickly. But while we're at it, Trump announces U.S. crypto reserve. This from AlJazeera.com, and I always like to tell you, everything we talk about is always linked up down in the show notes. Trump announces U.S. crypto reserve. The announcement over the weekend sent crypto markets into an upwards frenzy following a weeks-long recent slump, which I have been noticing, James. Everything booming. Just looking at gold, looking at Bitcoin, looking at cryptocurrency in general, things are a-booming. James?
Yeah, well, some things more than others, and I guess that's kind of the point of this story. Yes, let me add the New World Next Week caveat to this story. We are recording at 9:32 Japanese Standard Time on Thursday, March 6th, so whatever has transpired in the 24 hours between this and when you actually see it, we don't know about yet. But I will just put the bow on your update there. Yes, White House delays Canada-Mexico automaker tariffs for 1 month amid Trump-Trudeau deadlock, and I'll put in the link for that for people who need that update. But anyway, yeah, crazy, fluid situation. A lot is happening, but here is what we know. First of all, let me preface anything that I have to say about this with the voluntarist caveat that, hey, The entire concept that some man sitting in an office in Washington or Ottawa or anywhere else can just, with a stroke of a pen, suddenly levy all of these charges on transactions that are taking place between businesses and people across the imaginary arbitrary lines on the map is insanity. It is stupid. And until people start questioning that reality, that there is this third-party middleman that can get in between you and any transaction you want to make with any other human being on the planet, until we start questioning that, I think we won't really free ourselves from this paradigm of control. But I get it. We don't live in that world, James. So I guess there's a couple of points to be made here. First of all, from my Canadian perspective, I mean, I'm Canadian in name only at this point, right? But even so, I still feel a little bit of Canadianness when it comes to this. And I just want to let Americans who don't know about this know, you have no idea how vindictive Canadians are going to be about this. This has, I am sure, utterly destroyed Canadian-American trade relations for years, if not decades to come. And regardless of what happens, whether this is all taken back tomorrow or whatever, I think some severe damage has been made to the trade relationship. But beyond that, I think the broader point is that it's not just about what's happening between Canada and the US or Mexico and the US. It's every single country on the planet is watching this right now, including, of course, the EU and all the other major trading nations that the US trades with. And it takes decades and decades and decades to lay the foundations for an international trade system where businesses feel comfortable in creating international business relations. It takes, maybe a month to completely and utterly destroy that. And that's what we're seeing right now. And I would just caution for anyone who is cheering this on, well, yay, this is a rigged, stupid globalist system that we don't want anymore. I would caution that, no, this is whatever results from this in the long term, this is going to affect you and your family and your pocketbook in the near term. I've been saying for years that I think that the sort of hot war, World War III scenario is coming, but it's still years off right now. In the meantime, what precedes major wars like these? Major international economic and financial events. And I have a feeling 2025 may be the year that we're starting to feel the real economic topsy-turviness, and it's going to start hitting people in the pocketbook, which really leads to the broader point. We are entering the era of trade wars, and that is just the beginning, the harbinger of the hot wars. So incredibly important stuff. I'm going to be writing about all of this and trying to put it all together in my new newsletter editorial this weekend, so I hope people will stay tuned for that. But long story short, crazy times happening right now, and I think everyone is watching this. And again, regardless of what happens in the next 24 hours or 24 days or 24 months, this is going to have ramifications that will last for years, if not decades.
New decades this week. James, you remind me, how is that man in an office in Ottawa doing?
Well, I guess the latest attack is that, Trump is saying, Trudeau is just trying to stay in office by posturing on this. But I'm pretty sure there's no Canadian politician that's going to be like, yes, sir, Mr. Trump, can we raise tariffs even more? I mean, obviously. Anyway, schmolitics.
But I think his date is coming up rapidly of his 2 months of holding Canadian politics hostage. Hey, Ides of March coming up next week. We'll see what happens. That is how we get going on New World Next Week, episode 583. James and I have been giving you the real news since October 2009. On this now 583rd episode of New World Next Week, you said EU, James. A Brussels Reich, van der Leyen's ReArm Europe plan, grabbing this from 21st Century Wire. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, after tweeting the identical tweet every other person posted, James, it goes along exactly with all these U.S. Democrat politicians all posting the same worded tweets and videos. A bunch of European members all essentially did the same thing after quite the display in the White House with Zelensky and Trump just this past Friday, which we haven't even talked about yet. That European Commissioner, President Ursula von der Leyen, has introduced the ReArm Europe plan. The ReArm initiative represents an extensive €800 billion strategy designed to enhance Europe's defense capabilities and a strategic response to increasing global uncertainties and the recent halt of U.S. military assistance to Ukraine after the big public fight on TV in the White House last Friday. Von der Leyen outlines ReArm Europe plan ready to massively increase defense spending. European Commission President sends EU leaders her 5-point, €800 billion plan for defense. Suspend the Stability Pact for sector spending. Cohesion can be used for military. Europe is ready to massively boost its defense spending. The president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, the female supervillain the new Amazon James Bond reboot maybe really needs, flaunts confidence and determination. She warns about the dangerous times that characterize the present and even more likely the future. They don't even have a positive. See again, when your leaders are giving you doom and gloom, we're all going to die, man. Instead of saying, hey, maybe we'll get together and be happy. Again, she warns about the dangerous times and everything's evil and you should hide under your desk and be afraid. I do not need to describe the grave nature of the threats that we face or the devastating consequences that we will have to endure if those threats would come to pass. Because she points out we are in an era of rearmament. And at this stage, the EU intends to respond with a 5-point European rearmament plan, the name of which, ReArm Europe, already suggests as much. Von der Leyen has already sent her plan to members' countries, heads of state and government, to ensure security and defense and revitalize the 12-star heavy industry. Not sure exactly what that means, James. Let's put a pin in that. It is a way to give leaders time to study it well and discuss it at the March 6th Extraordinary European Council Summit. So they better hit the books quickly, from which the EU executive president expects full support. The real question in front of us is whether Europe is prepared to act as decisively as the situation dictates. In the various meetings in the last few weeks, most recently 2 days ago in London, the answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. Trump's bad. Let's buy and sell more weapons of war. France, EU move to secure Ukraine minerals deal as U.S. pushes for deal. Also this fight over all those sweet, sweet rare earth elements, because what are our ticktards going to play Candy Crush on, James? And we will include the complete Trump-Zelensky meeting, and even we have it time-stamped with a link for you so you don't have to watch the whole 2-hour-long exchange. But holy moly, between that White House bit and that speech last night, good giggly moogly, the Trump train continues to roll on here in the States. Trump pauses all military aid to Ukraine. I mean, what are Biden and McCain's neo-Nazis going to do now, James? Co-president Elon Musk urges U.S. to exit NATO as tensions soar after heated Trump-Zelensky spat. Did we bury the lead there, James?
Maybe, but it's all of a piece, isn't it? And yeah, it is a crazy topsy-turvy time, so we can't possibly cover all aspects of everything that's going on, but we can zoom out and take a look at the big picture. What is this really about and what is really happening here? And for people who haven't caught on yet, globalism is getting a gigantic shot in the arm with all of this disruption. Because, of course, in any time of crisis, the people who are setting the narrative are going to come along and tell you that the solution is what it has always been: more globalization. And as a case in point of that, the only thing Europeans can agree on is that they're not European. I'm Italian, I'm French, I'm German, I'm British, I'm not European, right? Unless and until there comes along this gigantic shakeup and, oh my God, no, we got to band together as Europeans, and they get the political animus, I guess, to press forward with actually creating all of these crazy globalist plans that they were never able to create. Remember the European Constitution that got completely voted down, or remember the Lisbon Treaty that they had to keep shoving down the public's throats in Ireland, for example, till they got what they wanted? Because most people are not EU rah. And you will remember right after Brexit, back in June 2016, I was reporting on a Polish broadcaster that leaked some documents that were being passed around the EU by the French and Germans at that time that were calling for the creation of a European superstate, complete with a European army, European security compact, shared borders and migration policy, a deeper economic and monetary union. These grandiose ideas for total globalist control. And here we come with the real start of the regional government that will be the building blocks for global government. That didn't take off very well. It didn't get very far. We did follow up on that in 2017 as it continued to unfold. Here on New World Next Week, we had an edition of New World Next Week on the EU Army, Biden, Gaga, and digital pills. So I'll throw that in the show notes for people who want to revisit that. But we were talking about the EU signing a defense pact as part of their decades-long quest to create a European army. But here we are. It's 2025. And here it comes. Hey guys, you see what's happening. We need the European army. Gigantic shot in the arm to what is happening. And we see this along so many different lines right now that it's hard not to see it at this point. All of the people who were warning about the North American Union a couple of decades ago are now, yay, yay, Canada 51st state, yay. Or, U.S. needs to invade Greenland. What have they done for us lately? Or, hey, yay, America first, yay, yay, we'll take over the Panama Canal again. So what happens? A consortium of businesses purchase some of the key ports near the Panama Canal that were formerly being operated by some Hong Kong-based conglomerate. Yay, America first. Wait, who's leading this conglomerate? Oh, that's right, BlackRock. Yeah, BlackRock is taking over the Panama Canal. Yay! Get those globalist deep staters, guys. Drain the swamp. So we see what is happening. I think we see what is happening right by now, right? This is actually, in a perverse way, this is a gigantic shot in the arm towards globalism and all of the things that we've been fighting. But with the added bonus that the people who used to be against it, a lot of them are cheering it on right now. It is a crazy time. So, yeah, we can only sort of gesture at this and that as these crazy events go through the news wires. But I hope people get the bigger picture of what's happening here.
That's good. Hadn't had it quite simply put that to me. Yeah, we went from alternative media going, the North American Union's going to destroy the country, now to like, hey, we'd all love it and we'll all join, and isn't it funny? It's kind of like how a giant chunk of alternative media went from Muslim terrorists don't exist really and they're not our enemy to they're a dirty, horrible strain on our country. Just depends on, who shows up in D.C. every 4 to 8 years. But I think people have been watching New World Next Week for however many decades in Corbett Report and Media Monarchy. We might not be the best. We might not be the greatest and smartest. I think we're pretty close. But you don't see us every 4 to 8 years completely come out with a new whole branding campaign about what we want to believe in and target this time. But James, like you remind me, like Killing Joke sang about many years ago, the European superstate. So for our third and final story on this New World Next Week, episode 583, and as funny, as entertaining, and as unprecedented as that ridiculous Trump speech last night, we all noticed while streaming it on Monarchy TV. James, you've been in there for some watch-alongs before as well. There's some smart cats in there. Several of us noticed they never once said the I word. For all the awesome owning of the libs, which I enjoyed, and all the other great changes, never once said the I word. So our third and final story on this episode, campus police are using Israeli spy tech to crack down on student protest. In the early days of his presidency, Trump announced he would be fighting anti-Semitism on college campuses by prosecuting and revoking visas for certain students he deemed to be Hamas sympathizers. In a fact sheet accompanying an executive order with measures to combat anti-Semitism, Trump threatened students, quote, "Come 2025, we will find you and we will deport you." The order states that the Department of Education, which I heard we were dismantling and getting rid of entirely, now it's enforcing all these other things, look at that, will seek to familiarize institutions of higher education with these goals so that universities may, quote, "monitor for and report activities by alien students and staff relevant to those grounds and for ensuring that such reports about aliens lead to investigations and, if warranted, actions to remove such aliens." Because participation in pro-Palestine movements is often equated with anti-Semitism, advocates and journalists like Etan Nietzsche, a correspondent from Haaretz, were quick to identify this as a textbook authoritarian playbook meant to stifle any criticism of what's going on in Israel. The order blends Trump's fascist policies against immigrants and his obsession with mass deportations led by ICE with his commitment to Israeli occupation. And again, the thing you'll never hear alt-media Trumpers willingly mention, as New World Next Week has always told you, he is a Zionist Adelson shill. Just as things were reaching its crescendo in 2016, James, we talked about how he's loving the 9/11 myth. There was something about Trump and 9/11 steel, and they were always moving the steel around in these ritualistic positions. But that he also, of course, was meeting with Kissinger and Sheldon Adelstein right before taking the reins. And we've argued about this in media monarchy. People, pissed that we're cheering on and enjoying these last couple of months of Trump. I think one thing, we know this. One thing both parties agree on is they are always going to support Israel and only fight about who actually supports Israel more. So we kind of wonder if any of that was ever going to change, regardless of what fool was in Washington, D.C. But if we can maybe not have our friends and family force medicated, those are some of the wins we're going to have to take here in the States. Continuing, it dovetails seamlessly with the current surveillance networks many universities already have in place after the crackdown on students and community members during the spring 2024 encampments. Last year's student-led movement for Palestine prompted a response that revealed the police surveillance technology amassed by campus law enforcement agencies all across the United States. And again, this knows no party. Obama, just as Bush, loved getting your local military's high-tech military equipment. The images of militarized police, and again, James, this is like old man talking about post-9/11 era when everything was being set up and militarized. The images of militarized police flooding sanctuaries of higher learning and free speech, citation needed, has prompted public outrage. In some places, students and faculty reiterated a long-standing call to remove cops of all kinds from college campuses. I don't know if I remember there being cops at all on my college campus. There might have been essentially what we call rent-a-cops, hired security. In other communities, activists protesting the occupation of Palestine are calling for universities to divest from Israeli entities, including campus police investments in Israeli surveillance technologies that support occupation at home and abroad. And James, it's really struck, this is something Cassie and I have talked about a lot here at home the last couple of years, how it seemed as though the left was allowed to now protest Israel or to at least support Palestine. And if it's not this, we'll let them now, this steam valve, you got to let the steam valve out sometimes so there won't be a massive explosion. Is it steam valve, or is this now just another part of that 80 years of destroying what we've seen in the past while they now create the new order out of their chaos, James?
Why not both? Why not also some sort of trap, a rat trap to, get at least half of the public energized with, get those damn stinking anti-Semites out of this country, yay, get them on board with the agenda, generally speaking, and to make it into a left-right divide and rule strategy as well. So it's a win-win-win-win-win-win for the oligarchy in a lot of different ways, but of course, most importantly for the Zionist elements. Having said that, again, zooming out for the larger view of this, part of what this should be raising in the minds of thinking people is, why does the federal government in the United States have anything to say about what's going on in campuses? Oh, that's right, because they, through the Department of Education and what have you, give their various grants and money and whatever, which is always the sword of Damocles hanging over these institutions. We'll take that away if you don't do what we want. So maybe the fundamental problem is this leverage that the government has managed to carve out for itself over something that, oh, by the way, it has no constitutional right to do. There's nothing constitutional about the U.S. federal government having anything to do with education, but here it is. So, holding my breath, waiting for the Department of Education to be scrapped completely. Meanwhile, let's see how Maha's going. Oh, that's right. Get your measles vaccines, guys, says the HHS under RFKJ. Hey. Anyway, let's also check, by the way, what's happening in Gaza. As an afterthought about all this talk about anti-Semites in the U.S. and whatever. Let's see, what's the latest headline from anti-war? Oh, that's right. Israel preparing hell plan for Gaza that would cut electricity and water. And that is by Dave DeCamp at antiwar.com. But hell plan is not his formulation. That is literally what the Israel government is calling it. So, yay! But if you dare to protest that, get them out of this country. There's no room in America for someone who isn't for genocide and ethnic cleansing. welcome to America 2025, I guess.
Man, and we didn't even mention the awesome Epstein files release. Another, big, huge one. James, wisely, I didn't pay one whit of attention to, they're going to do an Epstein thing. So, of course, it's very easy then to feel validated like, hey, guess what? I knew it was going to be nothing. Again. As the popular meme often shows, the condensed version of the Epstein client list is Hollywood and Congress. That is New World Next Week, episode 583. We run newworldnextweek.com for some Corbett Report and monarchy items. James, I think Monday morning in my Media Monarchy chat, many members were already posting. They already got their physical copies of your reportagebook.com in their hot little hands. But I, of course, like to remind people that I play the exclusive audio. So when we talk about that 24-hour delay, I can do it a little bit better. I can get you about an 18, 16-hour delay, and it'll be that much fresher after my Thursday morning monarchy at around 10 a.m. Mountain Time. That is at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. James, that is 583, buddy.
Awesome. And just a couple of media notes to wrap up, because I know you'll appreciate this. My favorite Killing Joke song is Come As You Are. That's a great song. And that's a joke for people who get. And secondly, Pulp of Wood would be a good band name. It sounds like a Japanese rock band name, actually. So
there is famed Sheffield Brit rock band Pulp with Jarvis Cocker.
Yes, that's true. Okay,
I was like, no,
yeah,
no,
too much,
no.
Too similar. We'll put that back on the drawing board anyway.
Or here in the States, it would have to be, Pulp UK or Charlatans UK or London Suede. Yeah,
like Bush X or whatever. I don't know. Anyway,
I never knew about that. I just learned about that recently, James. All right, I'll stop.
Anyway, now that everyone's tuned out, see you next week.
Cheers, buddy. Thanks.